Hari Om to all of you.
Hari Om.
We have reached the final verses of the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sankhya Yoga. Essentially, Sankhya Yoga is the chapter that provides us the path of knowledge and wisdom. Jnana Yoga. Essentially, Sankhya Yoga is Jnana Yoga. And this is not what I am defining. This is outlined by Bhagavan Krishna. And this wisdom is imparted to Arjuna, essentially to each one of us through Arjuna. And in this chapter, if you see the existence of Supreme Being, Gita's version at this point is basically instilling the knowledge in all of us about the existence of Supreme Being. And this is a very important chapter. I would say it's a very pivotal chapter, because all other chapters, all the subsequent chapters from 3rd to 18 are basically the elaborations of the knowledge which is already imparted in the second chapter. This is very, very, very important. All other chapters are basically adding, or it's not adding, it's basically elaboration, where second chapter lays the foundation for the rest of Bhagavad Gita's teaching. And after the Arjuna Vishada Yogam, Bhagavan straight away started explaining the nature of our own self, nature of the soul, nature of the Atman, nature of our eternal self. And at the same time, also opening up the impermanence of the body, impermanence of the material world, the Prakriti. That is how the chapter started. As I mentioned, the second chapter sets the stage for the rest of the teachings. And in second chapter, if you see, what are the essential aspects of teaching, the core concepts of true reality of an individual. Who truly are you? Plus actions, how to do the actions, the karma yoga. Not only that, the ways to do the actions with the knowledge of the true reality. You agree with me, right? True reality of an individual, how to perform actions, how to do the actions. Not only doing the actions with the knowledge of the true reality, and those actions with knowledge, and those actions executed with knowledge leading to liberation. This is the core concept of second chapter. So that is where second chapter also sets the stage for us, or create the capacity in all of us to inquire, to study, to meditate, to do the reasoning, and to realize. So rise above the superficial worldly pleasures. Don't get stuck at those superficial worldly pleasures and you identify with those and get stuck in life. And that is where straight away second chapter started with the knowledge of the Supreme and the connection of that Supreme with the self, the individual self. Clarifies the real purpose of one's life. That is what essentially Bhagavan started with in this chapter, in the second chapter. So here at this context, I would like to bring the Shanti Mantram of the Kena Upanishad. The Shanti Mantram is Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranas Chakshu Shrotramadho Belam Indriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahmaupanishadam Maham Brahma Niragurya Ma Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranam Astu Anirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirate Ya Upanishadsu Dharmaste Mayi Santu Te Mayi Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very, very profound. Sarvam Brahmaupanishadam Maham Brahma Niragurya. Before that, this is a very profound prayer. The prayer starts with the well-being. Prayer for the well-being of physical, mental, subtle planes. That is what? Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranas Chakshu Shrotra Madho Belam Indriyani Cha Sarvani. May my limbs, speech, breath, eyes, ears, all the senses get the strength, get the nourishment as well as perfection. And here, Aniragaranam Astu, Aniragaranam Me Astu. May I never reject Brahman, the higher truth. Not only that, may Brahman never reject me as well. May I never reject Brahman, as well as may Brahman never reject me. What is the meaning here? May I be always graced by that truth. This is a prayer. Let there be no denial of the truth by me and no denial of truth for me. Not only that, may all the virtues that are spoken in the Upanishad abide in me. Abide in me who am devoted to the self, meaning my true nature. So the prayer is basically to uplift at a body, mental, subtle planes, body, mental, subtle well-being. Beyond that, may I never reject Brahman, that higher truth, as well as may that Brahman never reject me. Let there be no denial of the truth by me and no denial of truth for me. May all the virtues that are spoken in the Upanishad abide in me, and I am fully devoted to that divine, to my true nature. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the purpose of life, that's what I started. Purpose of life is basically bringing this clarity. This is the true upliftment. The true upliftment and how to address the dilemmas in life. This is very common in all of us because we always interact with the world. And we also need the mental and emotional well-being, controlling the mind, managing stress, how to manage your emotions, how to control anger, lust, greed. That's where Bhagavan brings the term Sthita Prajnatvam, Sthita Prajnan, man of equanimity. Equanimity as a key attribute for our upliftment. What is equanimity? It's basically the balanced perspective in life. Balanced perspective, when I say, life is all about dualities, good, bad, pain, pleasure, all those, right? So one should have a balanced perspective on life's dualities. And how that balanced perspective will come, that will happen only through cultivating the knowledge, cultivating this knowledge. And when that knowledge is there, we are building the inner strength, we are building the courage. So when we are aware of that, then what we have to do? We have to focus on that strength, that eternal nature, rather than the impermanent things outside, including the body, including the worldly objects. So when we evolve to that, at that point of time, we will be able to face any challenges that comes to life with confidence and conviction. So purpose of life, that is where Bhagavan said the context. Next is basically the righteous actions and living. Emphasizes the selfless action, karma yoga. If you see the verse 47, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, it is quite obvious that when we work in this world, the preoccupation of the outcomes, what will happen, and doubting on those outcomes. So ultimately, it builds anxiety in us. That is where Bhagavan says this mantra: reduce the anxiety and foster the resilience by what? By shifting the focus from the outcomes that are yet to happen, right? Anxieties of the outcomes. So shift the focus from anxieties of the outcomes to what? To the efforts which is happening in the present. Calibrate, or what is the right word, re-vector your thinking from the outcomes which are yet to happen to the efforts which are happening in the present. This is the virtuous living. And you leave the rest of the things to that supreme. So that is where this instills a hope. This will also gives resilience in us, right? And again, the third dimension, the growth and progress that one can achieve. There is tremendous scope in all of us to learn, continuous learn. Even when it comes to the Aparavidya also, there are a lot of things to learn in life. But Aparavidya will not help in true realization. So that is where continuous learning in the plane of Paravidya, reflections, introspections, doing the Swadhyayam, getting fresh insights, having Satsanga Samskara. Why it is needed? Because for us to apply in our life. Applicability of this knowledge in our life, it is very much needed. That is where practical solutions to navigate challenges in this world. That is where a meaningful life we can craft through this knowledge. For that, what we need we need to gain certain qualifications to gain or absorb that higher knowledge. So you all have listened to the satsangam related to Tattva Bodha or Atma Bodha, where the 4 D's: discrimination, dispassion, discipline, desire, and where the discipline comprises of the 6-fold disciplines. So discrimination is all about nitya, anitya vastu vivekam. Dispassion is all about vairagya, meaning what? Knowing what is permanent and what is not permanent, and have association with the permanent and decoupled from the impermanent. That is vairagya. This is dispassion. And we need to have discipline, 6-fold disciplines: shamam, damam, uparamam, shraddha, tidiksha, samadhana. Right? And desire is what? Desire is mumukshutvam, all about desire for liberation, desire for freedom. In one way we can say desire is basically desire. What is the subject? There is no subject, right? The subject is basically the pratyagatma vishaya. Pratyagatma meaning pratyak atma. Pratyak meaning inward, direct. The self is inward. Our true strength is inward. True strength is inside. Pratyak atma. Atma is self. So the inward directed self, taking refuge in that, knowing that truth, that is where the mumukshut. The inner individual self, right? What is inner individual self? This is all about the consciousness. The consciousness that experiences the body, mind, and the worldly objects. Knowing that consciousness, knowing that truth. So Vishayam is what? Vishayam is all about knowledge. Knowledge of the self. Pratyagatma. Pratyagatma meaning inward directed self. That is where Bhagavan in Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter we can see Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. In Gita's language, Pratyagatma, the consciousness is called as Kshetrajnan. The constant knower, the constant seer. So what we will do is we will quickly reflect upon the verses that we covered, and we will conclude the verses 70, 71 and 72, these 3 verses today. We will quickly go through all the great learnings that we have covered. So first learning is courage in crisis. That is where Bhagavan scolds Arjuna. How come you got this faint heartedness in you? That klibada. So you rise above the faint heartedness. You have the potential within to come out of the grief and delusion. The verse number 11 basically says that. Bhagavan says, there is Ashochan Anyashojastum Prajna Vadamscha Bhashasya Gada Soon Agadam Soomscha Nanishojanti Pandita. So you have the potential within you to come out of this faint-heartedness. You can come out of this issue. You will gain the freedom from grief and delusion. And again, the confusion was death and all those disasters that will happen. So that is where Bhagavan says, see the loss and death from a higher perspective. That's where Bhagavan opens up the spiritual vision. Straight away then jumps into the nature of yourself. Understanding the imperishability of your true nature. Understand the imperishability of the soul. And that soul before understand that soul, you shift your focus from the body to that self, because body and the interactions that we have in the day-to-day life, including the objects that we deal in life, all are transient. So you understand that nature of those objects as impermanent. You shift the focus from body to self. You shift the focus from impermanent to permanent. And you have a non-attachment to the transient things. And the transient things will always challenge you with dualities. Shida, Ushna. All those dualities will come. So you need to, how to deal with that? You have to deal with the brave endurance of the dualities, the titiksha. See, in the olden days, in our homes, we used to see this glass tumbler, right? We use the same tumbler for hot water, cold water, ambient water. So how the tumbler is, we should be like that. Whether it is filled with hot water or cold water. Hey Arjuna, you need to have titiksha in life. You have to endure these dualities with this knowledge. And you do the duty as a yajna rather than a burden. In the case of Arjuna fighting the war, Arjuna ultimately said, I cannot, I need to run away from this. That is where, don't take this as a burden. You be aware of your duty and do that duty as yajna. So you need to have clarity of purpose. You need to discern between what is right, what is wrong. And you need to choose the higher aspect over the lower motives with this wisdom. And see the life as a field for self-growth. Whatever work you do, convert that as a karma yoga and see the life as a field for your own upliftment, self-growth and mental refinement. This is what the essentially karma yoga says. Righteous actions and living, shift the focus from outcomes to the efforts. You have a right to do the action. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma bhaleshu kadachana ma karma bhala he durpu ma de sangostu akarmani. You be detached from the outcomes. You focus on the execution and do the action as selfless actions, not selfish. The vairagya buddhi, acting without selfish desires. Essentially the verses 2, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51 all says, you do the actions without selfish desires. Let go of anxiety of those outcomes. And you be equanimous towards friends, foes, praise, blames. That's where essentially verse number 57 says, right? Whether it is prapya shubha shubham na abhinandadi na dveshti tasya prajna pradishti. Then control of desires and senses very much needed, right? Where we can see this kurma anganiva sarvasha, how a tortoise withdraw the senses. As a yogi, you need to withdraw those senses, withdraw your senses like a tortoise. And you also recognize that desires grow when indulged. and it will subside when you have a higher taste in you. And Bhagavan warns us about the downward spiral. Jayado vishayan pumsa sangaste shubha jayade sangat samjayade kama kamat krodho vijayade krodat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhrama smriti bhramshat buddhinashat pranashyati. Prevent the downward spiral of uncontrolled senses, leading to attachment, that further leading to anger, that further leading to delusion, that further leading to loss of memory, that ultimately makes an individual to perish. When I say perish, the destruction of wisdom happens in an individual if the senses are not controlled properly. Then Bhagavan says about the prasada buddhi in the 64-65 verses, gaining serenity of mind by regulated living, regulated style of living, whatever we take up in life. How regulation, how moderation. There Bhagavan says joy and mental clarity will emerge from where? Emerge from self-control and devotion. A regulated life cycle is needed, or a regulated lifestyle, we can say. That will bring clarity and serenity. So what is needed? Then Bhagavan says about Yanisha sarvabhudanam tasyam jagrati samyami yasyam jagrati bhudani sa nisha pashyadrumane. The meditative mindset which is needed. But before that, the traits of a sthita prajna, if you see the verses 255 to 61, freedom from likes and dislikes. This is the real freedom. Unmoved by pleasure and pain. So a sthita prajna is the one who lives in the world. It is not something like, you run away from the world. You live in the world but not bound by the world. So senses under full control, mind established in the self. So here sthita prajna lakshana, when we say simple philosophy, is you give a more weightage to the inner life than the outer life. That's where the verse number 69 says, Yanisha sarvabhudan. When we say sleeping when the world is awake and awake when the world sleeps, it's basically the priority that one gives in life towards the inner focus. It doesn't mean that again running away from the world. No. You are in the world but not of the world. You are in the world but not controlled by the world. So overall, lot of positive lifestyle habits. If you decode each and every sloka, you can see lot of the soft skills that we talk in modern management. The mental focus, the concentration, maintaining discipline in life, maintaining moderation, cultivate fearlessness, cultivate humility, cultivate perseverance. These all are the stepping stones for one's growth. So one way we can say, second chapter is a very big user manual for our mind, where the goal is also clear. What is the goal? Goal is towards striving for wisdom. This is the very quick summary of all the verses that we have gone through. Now we will start these 3 verses today, starting with 70. Apuryamanam achala pradishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sa shantimapnoti na kama kami. So here Apuryamanam achala pradishtam samudram apa pravishanti yadvad tadvad kama yam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. So here a wise person, a sthita prajnan, a yogi, a jnani, a jivan muktan is equated as an undisturbed ocean. What is the difference between an ocean and a pond?
Pond is always calm.
Pond or ocean?
Ocean.
So if it rains, what happens to the pond?
Abundance is there in sea.
So you can see that in the case of a sea, the water from all channels or all rivers, let us take rivers, flow into the ocean. But is there a case like the ocean will overflow? There is no case like that, correct? And what happens to the ocean when the different rivers come into? Can you just identify this water is from that river or something? And the saltness of the ocean, will it differ from place to place or time to time? So here a wise individual, a jnani, a sthita prajnan is equated as an ocean, where the ocean is unaffected by the flow of the rivers. When we say flow of the rivers, flow of the desires and the sensory objects around. So a wise is also living in this world. So wise can also get affected by the flow of desires and the sensory objects. Correct. So here Bhagavan's description of a wise or a sthita prajnan is that individual will never get affected by the flow of rivers or desires and the sensory objects around. Such jnani will remain in the state of inner peace, unattached, unperturbed by the external distractions and attractions. So this is a very stable, unaffected state, conducive to lasting tranquility and not chasing the desires, not pursuing the fulfilling desires. Ocean is brimful, right? And it is still. There is no overflow happening in the ocean. So too, the wise person is still. And in that wise person, like in the ocean, all these rivers will flow in. Similarly, in the jnani also, all the objects will enter. But objects may enter. What happens is basically remains unchanged. And the objects entering into the jnani will gain peace. So peace of mind is not affected by the objects that enter the mind. This is the prajna lakshana. This is the lakshanam of a jnani. Achala pradishtam, unmoving. Achalam meaning what? Chalam is moving. Achalam is not moved, not shaking. Sa shanti Shanti apnodi. So that person attains peace. So how? Through the knowledge, Jnani understands this. In chapter 9, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya Yogam, Bhagavan says, Bhagavan brings this verse, 9th chapter, 33. Yes. Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajarshayastada anityam asugam logam imam prapya bhajasvama. Anityam asugam logam imam prapya bhajasvama. The world is temporary and it is full of suffering. So it is quite natural that this influx or disturbance from the world will happen. It is inevitable because it has to come. It has to come, shake up. It has to disturb us. So the control should be within us to deal with the distractions from outside. So the mind will get perturbed due to these distractions, and it is quite obvious. The body will get these inputs from the indriyas, jnana indriyam, karma indriyam. Otherwise, also the mind will start thinking about whatever it wants. So here the jnani with the knowledge will absorb all the the temptations, and you say absorb all the rivers into himself or herself without overflowing like an ocean. All these senses will bring different experiences, different names, different forms. This is good, that is good, comparisons. In a jnani, what happens? These identities will get merged into that ocean of jnanam. Even if destructiveness come from outside, it will merge into that core. Even if temptations come into the inner realm, it will get merged into that core. How? If you see the river waters, if you see rivers will have different colors. But what happens ultimately when these rivers get merged into the ocean? Is there any specific color you can identify of that particular river after it gets merged? Similarly, all plurality coming from the worldly objects, for a realized one, only one thing will remain. What is that? Experience. The stillness. When I say experience, the true nature as the witness consciousness. What is that? The experience of oneness only will remain. All desires which enter into jnani through the senses cannot make any disturbance. This is this prajnatvam. In life, whatever we deal in this world, it cultivates more and more desires. That's where the term kama kami in this verse. Na sa shantim apnodi na kama kami. Kama kami meaning what? A worldly person. So worldly person will always have the bheda buddhi, meaning what? The delusion of separateness. So the jnani with jnanam, these divisions will disappear, and that jnani will be always in the shanti. Sa shantim apnodi na kama kami. Sa shantim apnodi. So that yogi, that's the prajnan, that jnani will be always in peace, not like a kama kami. Verse number 71. Vihaya kaman yasarvan Pumacharadi nispruha nirmamo nirahankara sa shanti madhigachadi. The one who has mastered desires and sensory pursuits as being being free from attachment, false ego, and possessiveness, such a person, once achieved, remains in peace regardless of external circumstances. Vihaya kaman yasarvan puman charadi nispruha nirmama nirahankara sa shanti adhigachati. So having given up all bonding desires, the person who moves around devoid of longing, without the sense of I and mine, nirmama nirahankara. So such a person gains peace. There is no enjoyership, there is no doership. All those things will get neutralized. Right? So for a jnani, doership is just not a doership, it is just doing. That is the difference. So that person, vihaya kaman ye sarvan, give up, abandon all those sense of mamakaratvam, nirahankaram. I mean, give up the ahankaram, mamakaram, without proprietorship, without the false ego playing some roles in that person's life. There is no arrogance, because there is no confusion in that person. That person is in perfect shanti. So that person will be free from the agitations caused by the greed or sense of anxiety and ego. Perfect and unwavering peace. Puman charadi nispruha. A perfect and unwavering peace. See, one thing we need to understand, when we say desirelessness, we may get confused. When the desire is for the satisfaction of self-realization, the other things will become dormant. What is dominant here? The desire for satisfaction of self-realization is dominant. In front of that, this is the higher ideal. This is the meaning. When we say desirelessness, the desire for satisfaction of the self becoming dominant, the other things will become dormant, including the sense gratifications. The desire to do the things for sense gratification will take a lower precedence. That will not be important for such a wise person. So for that person, what happens? That person will let go of materialistic desires, ego, and selfish attachments. That person will act with strength, act with sincerity, and will always experience the inner peace. Last verse, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati Sthitva Syamanta Kalevi Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Na Enam Prapya Vimuhyati Sthitva Asyam Antakale Api Brahma Nirvanam Richadi. Idi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvidiyodhyayaha. Once being in Brahman, Esha Brahmi Sthiti, one who is not deluded, one who works, who thinks that the way of life is to gain this deep knowledge about the self. And this is not a state actually. When you say Brahmi Sthiti, it is a way of life with the deep self knowledge. And when I say this is a state, there is always an understanding of the prapancha mithyatvam, the impermanence of the world, and the Brahma Tattva. When you say Brahmi Sthiti, Brahma Tattva. A mind that is always guided by the intellect with that wisdom will always know that the Jagat is mithya, and also be aware of the immortality with the objects that we deal in life. That awareness is enough. It doesn't mean that we have to deny. So we have to be conscious of our immortality. With that knowledge, take charge of our lives. This is what Bhagavan says here. In the Upanishad, Taittiriya, Om Brahmavid Apnodi Param, Om Brahmavid Apnodi Param, Tadesha Bhukta Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. Yo Veda Dihidam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. So Ashnude Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschidedi. So knower of the Brahman attains that supreme. Who is Brahman? Brahman is the Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. The truth which is within us. That truth which is residing in the deepest cave of our heart, in the supreme space, right? In that space, what happens? Everything will plunge into that reality. That is the Brahmi Sthiti. This is the Achalatvam. The ego gets extinguished in this knowledge. So this is the place where the ego cannot arise. This is the awareness that I am this truth, I am this unchanging reality, unchanging Brahman. Not once in a minute for a day. That awareness that I am this truth in every single moment. This is basically the continuous connect. This is the seamless, incessant experience. So for that, what we need to do? Divinize our activities, divinize our actions. Always with that Bhagavat Smarana, we have to do the actions. So in this context, I want to bring the blessings that Vamana Murthy gave to Mahavir. Rekshishye sarvadoham tuam swanugam sabarichidam sada sannihidam mira tatrama drikshyade bhavan. Hey hero, right? What is that? Veera is the word. Hey Veera, I shall protect you from all sides, along with my associates, and fully equipped, always being near to you. You will always see me. This is a very big assurance. This is the all-round protection or insurance. Constant presence. You will experience me. This is the direct experience. Rakshishye sarvadoham tvam sanugam saparichidam sada sannihidam veera tatrama rakshyade bhavan. It's a direct experience. So chapter 2 is basically what? It's a yoga of knowledge. It's a Sankhya yoga. So this chapter ends with profound guidance on duty, self-mastery, equanimity, act with dedication to the Lord. With the knowledge, always be steady in the mind and embrace life situations, whatever it comes in life, with fearlessness and optimism. This is the great wisdom that Bhagavan is imparting to us in the second chapter. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.